Due to recent circumstances, our entire family has decided to do something different. This time, we're heading out west. There were so many places we wanted to go to. There were so many things we wanted to do. So, eventually we decided we all wanted to see the Grand Canyon. And we decided to push forward and get there in record-breaking time. So we trudged through and we eventually made it to Tennessee. Shortly past Nashville, we decided we would find a place to stay for the night. We decided to call into one of our favorite restaurants, the Loveless Cafe, and see if they accepted RVers. Surprisingly, they said yes. They even told us where to park when we arrived. It was our first night on the road. We are in Nashville, Tennessee, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
And where are you staying?
Loveless Cafe. Possibly, we might move.
Yeah, we called in, told them, and that guy asked for permission. They said yes, but then when we got here, security guy said that that's not normally allowed, so he's checking on it.
As soon as we got there, the security guard came over and said we couldn't stay, but he would double check if we could. This was rather strange, because the person before had said exactly that we could stay here. And so we waited for a bit, they came out and said, in fact, you cannot stay here, and we left. Good thing there's always trusty Cracker Barrel. We went to bed, we woke up, we got some breakfast, and we headed out. Next stop, Arkansas Wine Country. Yes, Arkansas does have a wine country. We found out that the winery we like to eat at actually has an RV park where you can stay there for only a few dollars. But as we pulled in, there were a few mishaps. One, when my father went to plug in the RV, he got attacked by a bunch of wasps. Second, it turned out that our power had been blown out by a recent storm. Both of these were not good, and we were very concerned. We had a nice dinner. We enjoyed the place a lot, and despite this, we had to go find a new RV park, but we would recommend it when the power is back. There was a harvest host nearby, and we were thinking about doing that, but it was a little bit out of the way, so we decided to stay at another RV park instead. So we hurried to the RV park and decided to settle in for the night. While it suited our purposes, we would not recommend the park we stayed at. We left Arkansas and headed to Oklahoma. First thing we did there was get some Brahms. If you don't want to know what a Brahms is, you should definitely stop at one during your travels. They have good ice cream. After driving for a while, we again felt hungry and decided to stop at one of the best steakhouses in the world, the Big Texan.
We were trying to be responsible with social distancing during our trip and had decided to primarily eat in our camper or outside. The Big Texan was really our first exception to this. We wanted to be careful about it, so we called ahead of time for their protocol, and they told us that we could wait till they texted us to come inside, be met by one greeter wearing a mask that would take us to a seat upstairs where there wouldn't be any other customers around us, and that everyone serving us would be wearing a mask, and that we could wear our mask, obviously, until we were eating. We decided we thought that this was a reasonable procedure and we felt comfortable with the safety measures they had in place. Had they not had these safety measures, we would not have stopped. And in fact, at other locations when we checked in, we found out they didn't have these kind of measures in place, and we just continued on. Now that we've addressed that issue, let's go ahead and park, and then we can continue the video.
I asked my dad if I could do the 72-ounce steak challenge. Sadly, he declined.
The 72-ounce steak challenge is something that the Big Texan's famous for. You order a 72-ounce steak, they serve it on a stage with a timer, and you eat it plus all of the fixings in the time allotted, and you get the steak for free. While tempting, I decided to pass.
I met Texas at one of the world's best myself some good bread. This pepper, and I'll add some salt here. And about to have a lot of steak. Yeah. He's still chewing.
Back on the road, we had our first bit of trouble with our travel trailer. The Texas heat, it was 107 that day, melted the molding right off of the camper. However, we were able to go to the Micro Mini Winnebago Facebook page, found other people that had had the same problem. They told us how to fix it, and it took about 5 minutes, and we were back on the road.
Crossed the line into New Mexico. Something spooky would happen that night. I'll let my dad explain that fright.
We had called ahead as we left Texas into New Mexico to book a place to stay at a KOA. We programmed it into our GPS on the truck, and as we often do, we blindly followed the GPS. I should have noticed something was off. We kept taking us down roads that got smaller and smaller and rougher, and quite frankly, not great for the truck and RV. But then again, we had been to campsites before off the beaten path. The further we traveled, the more concerned both my wife and I became. It began to dawn on us that we might be on the wrong road. And even worse, it began to appear that maybe there was not a way to get back or turn around. As we looked on the GPS and even pulled up on Google Map, it clearly showed a road right to the KOA. So with blind faith, we continued on and we made another turn.
Really hope the KOA is down here. Because I don't know, I'd hate to back out of here and wash that road.
Let's just say I'm glad that I'm out of the camper right now.
Yeah. See, this road here has been washed and not graded. And it gives it like a washboard effect.
The road became even narrower, and the road was washed out in several places. I think any reasonable person would realize that they were in trouble at this point. And my wife and I started to have some discussions, and maybe some would say disagreements, about our next course of action. But here at a crossroads, we had to decide what to do. And we decided to keep going. Why not? Got us this far. As we continued, the GPS kept giving directions with absolute confidence that we would make it to the KOA, and we had no reason to doubt it. And my wife was also checking on Google Maps that also confirmed a road that would head straight to the KOA. But as we got closer and closer, I began to realize we might just be pulling into somebody's yard. We stopped for a moment to pause. The road ahead looked doubtful, as if it was a road, maybe even someone's backyard. But the map guaranteed that just around that corner there would be a road, and I trusted the map.
I can't drive up there. Or can I? That's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that there's not really a road up here on one of these, and we're going to get caught, or there's something I can't go under or through. This is someone's backyard, hon.
It's thundering.
I'm just going to have to ask this guy. This guy's going to be like, what the hell are y'all doing?
Banjos.
I'm sorry, sir. Our GPS said it was a road through here. Took us supposed to be going to a KOA. You know how to get out of here? Alrighty. Well, thank you, sir.
So sorry to bother you.
Make sure we don't hit anything.
I don't know if you could hear it, but the person was a little bit more than annoyed, understandably, and was not very polite. We were actually a little concerned, so we hurried along as fast as we could.
We must recommend don't drive your travel trailer into somebody's backyard.
That's good advice. Another bit of good advice would be never blindly follow your GPS. They sometimes get it wrong. But regardless, we did make it to the KOA.
We settled down and had a good night's sleep.
The next morning, I checked over the travel trailer to make sure there was no harm caused from our off-road adventure. Everything seemed fine.
So we got back on the road. The view from the freeway was excellent, but we decided to go off the road a bit and onto Route 66. Route 66 was the original road across the US, but some of the stuff around there has been abandoned. My mother insisted we stopped at one location. My father declined, but she kept on persisting. This location was subject to a famous song, but I can't play it for you because we don't have the royalties. At this location, we decided to stand on a corner in Winslow, Arizona. Oh look, a girl next to a flatbed Ford.
Speaking of fine sights to see, we were also able to take a look at these vintage travel trailers before heading back out.
After standing on the corner, we decided to pack up and head on our way. Down the road, we visited Meteor Crater National Landmark.
The crowds were very low, and we practically had the place to ourselves, which meant easy parking for the travel trailer. They also have a very large parking lot just for travel trailers. In fact, there was plenty of room for those with slides to just go ahead and let them out and enjoy their day there.
There's a small museum you can walk through before you get to the actual crater. This crater was made by a meteorite that struck 50,000 years ago. The impact had more force than the atomic bomb, 150 times to be exact. At the center of the crater, there's a flag and a 6-foot-tall astronaut statue, but you can't even see them because the crater is so big.
Like next to there's like a white little straight standing thing.
Yeah, but I still can't see the flag.
After looking at the crater, we headed back out.
Proceed on Meteor Crater Road.
It's up there, isn't it?
I thought that was the crater. And I realized that
Next stop, Grand Canyon National Park.
We had made no reservations for this trip, deciding to take it at the last moment and kind of just flying by the seat of our pants. So when we called and asked if there was any room at the Grand Canyon National Park RV Resort inside the park at South Rim, we were surprised when they actually had lots of openings. In normal years, this can be up to a year wait to get into the park.
Despite it being late and dark, we managed to find our RV spot. We were of walking distance to the rim of the Grand Canyon.
But it was too late tonight to try to go see the Grand Canyon, and you wouldn't see a lot in the dark. So once again, we settled in for the night.
We woke up and soon realized that we had some unexpected neighbors. What were those neighbors? Wildlife. Among the wildlife we saw were deer and elk. We also took some time to set up our camp and to grab some breakfast.
This turned out to be one of my favorite campgrounds I had ever been to.
We can't spend all of our time in the campground, so we decided to head out to the Grand Canyon.
We are at the Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon really lives up to its name. It is very grand and also is a canyon. This was probably one of the best views I've ever seen. My sister and mom will rank this as one of the best places they have ever visited. There were many paths you can take, and all of them led to equally great views. Hey Dad, if you fall off that cliff and survive, I can't believe this.
Wow.
Let's take a few moments to appreciate the views. Speaking of views, this is a great time to like and subscribe to our channel. As beautiful as the canyon is during the day, my favorite part was when we watched the sunset at night. Join us in the next part of this series where we go to Monument Valley in Moab.
Thinking about your bed.
Well, technically my top bunk. I like it because there's a lot of reasons. Number one, I like when I want to go to sleep over here, and I can see everything out here.
Well, do you ever actually make your bed?
No,
Who's this?
Samantha.
What's she doing? You weren't supposed to bring anybody with you.